We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And we're back for another episode. Tom, how much can happen in a week? Because it seems like a lot can happen in a week. Like an entire large headline grabbing.
I might disappear
USA...
in the middle of this podcast. You know, it is Tuesday, the 23rd, 2025, September, and apparently it is like the fifth rapture day that I've lived through.
Okay.
So
yeah, it seems
TikTok
like
is all a Twitter with Twitter. I don't know if we can even say Twitter anymore. Probably.
Well,
put me
we
on
especially
the NSA
can. That name
list.
has changed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm, one or both of us might get raptured during this.
Definitely. Could definitely happen. Yeah, no, a whole constitutional crisis seems to have begun and pseudo ended within the span of between when we recorded last and when we're recording now.
And this time.
Kind of
things happen, Rob. It's very
so. Yes, as not to be vague and glib, we are referring to the whole situation with Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel Live, the late night talk show hosted by Jimmy Kimmel on the ABC network. This was shortly after we finished recording last week. They're announcing. So ABC, it's a whole convoluted thing. I'll try to quickly summarize what it was. But ABC, that's the broadcast network that broadcasts Jimmy Kimmel Live, and they said they would indefinitely stop airing that show. So It wasn't canceled, like the show wasn't canceled, and they didn't fire Jimmy Kimmel, but they would suspend the airing of the show. Now, all of this had to do with rather explicit comments made by the chair of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission in the USA, Brendan Carr. And honestly, if you want a really, really good breakdown of everything that happened up until what just got announced yesterday before we record this on Tuesday, over at The Verge, they have their podcast, The Verge Podcast, and Nilay Patel, he is the editor-in-chief, he runs The Verge, he is on parental leave right now. But on that podcast, they have a segment that they're doing when he was still there called Brendan Carr is a Dummy. Now, I didn't make that up. That's the name of the segment that they gave in their own The Verge podcast. And that Nilay Patel was always the one who did that. But since he's on parental leave, we haven't been having that segment for a while. He came back from his parental leave for a special I've Got to Be Here for a Brendan Carr is a Dummy segment on The Verge podcast. But despite the humorous name that they're giving to that, really excellent breakdown of all the details. So if you want it far more detailed and better explained than I'm going to manage to summarize, that is one I can definitely recommend is checking out last week's episode of The Verge podcast, and it's the first segment that they do. Nilay leaves after that because he's got an infant to look after. A really, really good explanation. But the whole point being, so ABC is owned by Disney. People were getting mad at Disney for having canceled Jimmy Kimmel Live, which none of that is actually truly what went on there. What really happened was chair of the FCC, what they have direct control over at the FCC is granting permission for over-the-air broadcasters to make use of the publicly owned airwave frequencies, right? So the radio frequencies that broadcast television uses, so nothing to do with cable, nothing to do with streaming, broadcast over the air TV, they control those public airwaves and grant licenses and permission for broadcast towers to use them. So it's actually all the affiliates of ABC. It's actually all of the over-the-air affiliates, and there's 3 gigantic companies that have divided up the United States. There is a law on the books that none of them are allowed to reach more than 39% of U.S. households. But 2 out of those 3 affiliate broadcast companies want to merge. And together they would cover very nearly 80% of the USA. So they want the merger to be approved, and they want the law to be changed, which would be necessary for the merger to be approved. And Brendan Carr went on a right-wing podcast and flat out said, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. And we don't, he straight up said, we found what Jimmy Kimmel said about the shooting of Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago.
Technically, what he said was he was remarking on Trump's reaction to.
That is what Jimmy Kimmel actually did. But what Brendan Carr said was that we found the comments that Jimmy Kimmel made about Charlie Kirk shooting to be obscene, right? Which is an actual term in the laws. Term, the licensing. That they found the comments to be obscene, and therefore, ABC, it's incumbent upon them to. Look, it doesn't have to be a suspension. Could have paid a fine. That's normally how things go when over-the-air broadcaster broadcasts something that's deemed to be obscene. Normally, there's just a fine. But straight up said that they want there to be repercussions for Jimmy Kimmel in particular, not the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, for Jimmy Kimmel in particular, the man, that they wanted there to, straight up said, wanted there to be repercussions, and that if they want this merger to go through, they can do this the easy way or they can do this the hard way. That's a quote. That is what I'm not making. Unbelievable stuff. But yeah, we'll fast forward to yesterday, Monday, as we're recording this, where Disney, parent company of ABC Network, said the suspension is lifted. Jimmy Kimmel Live will be back on the air as of Tuesday evening. But that doesn't mean the affiliates have to broadcast it. They can still preempt those broadcasts with whatever content they want. So, as far as the national broadcasting, as far as back on cable, back on streaming, Jimmy Kimmel Live will be back. The show will be back. Who knows what comments he's going to make? Who knows what things were said behind the scenes to make this agreement?
He's certainly not going to make fewer comments at this point.
I would kind of hope not. I kind of hope he goes ham on the whole thing. And you know what? There were comments from, it was Eisner, right, who was CEO before Bob Iger at Disney. He made a public op-ed post saying this, kowtowing to this type of, straight up government censorship. This is not hidden. This is not behind the scenes, behind closed doors. This was flat out said in public. This is absolutely
he's walking those
against
comments
the First
back
Amendment.
Now. That's not what I meant. You took me out of context.
Sure, of course, yeah. But yeah, so Eisner made those comments publicly, and it was right after that the announcement that Jimmy Kimmel Live would be back on the air happened. I'm
apparently Sinclair Media is not going to shows Jimmy Kimmel. They're going to show Family Feud or something
like that. But folks like that, they probably carry more weight than just about anybody else, because Bob Iger very much looked up to Eisner as sort of as his predecessor, CEO at Disney. Now, of course, people have pointed out that Eisner himself completely caved to the political pressure from China when he was running things, because he's we're not going to censor our Disney movies and that. And China's well, then you don't get to show them here. He's okay, so we'll censor our stuff when we show it in China, and just completely caved immediately. So yeah, people are pointing out, okay, maybe he wouldn't have made such a different decision if he had been running things currently. But nonetheless, that was the Jimmy Kimmel incredible saga that happened between AVRant recordings. Good times.
And also the Rapture. So I assume that either all of our audience will still be here or none of them at the end by the time this podcast actually goes out. We'll see.
Who knows? Now, changing the tone of my voice because it deserves so. There was another mass shooting in the United States last week. That was in Pennsylvania. There were 5 police officers shot. 3 of them were killed, and the shooter was also killed during that. So, this has been a weekly thing, 3 weeks in a row now, reporting on mass shootings in the U.S. Pretty horrible. Also, Russia has once again entered the airspace of a different NATO member. This time, fighter jets went into Estonian airspace. So, poking and
instead
prodding,
of just drones,
going
they've been doing
there.
Drones everywhere else, but they sent jets into Estonia.
But yeah, we got to come back to the U.S. for a bit because there was other stuff such as President Trump posting publicly on his Truth Social network what seemed like it was intended to be a direct private message to
Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Straight up directing her to hire a specific lawyer to be a U.S. attorney in Virginia to expressly go after his perceived opponents in, like, for example, Comey and Schiff and Letitia James, seems like flat out worse than Watergate. Just, and what is going on, Tom?
I'm just trying to put this house together. Can you just let me get the house together first before
we'll get to the house updates in just a bit, because now H-1B visas for foreign workers, skilled foreign workers in the U.S., going to cost $100,000. Right. Originally, they said a year, but they walked that back and said, no, it's going to be a one-time thing. Google freaked out and told everyone who was out of the United States, on a vacation or visiting back home, like, get back here before midnight on Sunday because we're worried about this fee. The White House also walked that back and said, no, we're not actually going to charge the $100,000 for anyone who already has an H-1B visa. This will be going forward. But nonetheless, caused a bit of kerfuffle over that. And then President Trump got onto a press briefing and straight up said that pregnant women don't take Tylenol. That is a quote. He said, yes. Don't take Tylenol. Fight like hell not to take it. Again, direct quote. Because RFK Jr. is completely erroneously claiming that there is a direct causal link between pregnant women taking Tylenol while they are pregnant and then the children having autism, which there is absolutely no verifiable evidence, nothing like that. They pointed to two long-term 200 participant studies of sibling children, and not half siblings, like same parents in both cases, where they found enough cases where the mother did not take Tylenol during the first pregnancy and did take Tylenol during the second pregnancy. And there is absolutely no even correlation link between the rate of autism in the babies that were born and whether the mother took Tylenol or not. President Trump also was not able to pronounce the word acetaminophen.
He cannot say it. That was actually hilarious. Watching him try to say that word and then not knowing what he was talking about and asking, is this true what I'm saying? Am I saying something that's true? You're like...
Oh. So... Tylenol's stock price took a crazy dip immediately after. Who knows? Maybe somebody was preparing for that because insider trading doesn't seem to be all that rare these days, but I won't make any proclamations about that because I don't want a black bag to go over my head. And then speaking of which...
You'll be fine. I, on the other hand, might have something to worry about as you talk more and more.
Speaking of Canada, our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he made the official declaration that Canada is recognizing Palestine as an independent state. The UK, Australia, and Portugal joined Canada in doing that. Other nations are expected to join that proclamation at the UN's 80th General Assembly, which is taking place in New York this week. So that's all going in that direction. All of the hostages from Israel have not been released yet, and all of the countries, including Canada, had said that was a prerequisite, that we weren't going to recognize Palestine as an independent state until all of the hostages were released, but they have not been, and that declaration was made. So, there are very valid arguments on both sides of that one, but it is a thing that has happened. So there you go. That's the world headline news, folks.
Oh my!
I didn't want to talk about it this long, but Jimmy Kimmel is, related to home theater. You might be watching him on your home theaters, so there you go. We spent some time on that one.
I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. So what's been going on with you, Rob? Anything exciting before we?
Actually, there's completely personal news. I'll put a new timestamp in for this section.
Thank you.
Nothing crazy. Had a little minor event with my aunt who has dementia, wandering out of the apartment building again, but she didn't get far and she came back on her own. So thankfully that did not turn out to be anything too concerning, but had a little fun moment there. But no, I had a fun. I want to switch the tone. I had a fun personal experience, which is I'm a big fan on YouTube of the channel FilmCow. They make animations, including Charlie the Unicorn. That's his most famous one. Many people know Charlie the Unicorn, and FilmCow is the YouTube channel that made that. Now it's Jason Steele. He's the guy doing everything over there at FilmCow. And every night, like literally every night, including like on Christmas night and New Year's Eve, he does a 2-hour video game stream on YouTube, not for money or anything like that. He's just like, he winds down at the end of his day. He's over on the East Coast, so the timing works out kind of well because I go to bed early and he stays up late, but he's on the East Coast, so the 3-hour time difference works out well. So quite often while I'm falling asleep, I'll put on his live stream where he just plays a video game just for his own amusement and relaxation. And I enjoy Jason Steele. I enjoy his humor and I enjoy his laugh, and it's a lot of fun listening to him. So a few nights ago, he was like, I've got a tune stuck in my head. He's like, and I can't identify he's like, I can't remember where this tune came from. And he's like, all I can remember is it kind of goes da-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na, and then it goes up an octave, da-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na, and he's like, I can't think of where it's from. He's like, I'm pretty sure it's from like a movie or a TV show, but I can't remember what it was. And then the next night, he's like, I still can't remember where this song came from. He's like, but I have this like image in my mind of like someone kind of looking angry or like stern while the music is playing. He's like, it might be from a horror movie. He's like, I can't tell what it was. And so like, I didn't get to that stream until like an hour and a half into the 2-hour stream, but it had sparked something in my head because I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of familiar. And I was kind of in that half asleep state, and my brain was like going through stuff, and it was like I was like thinking of like Quentin Tarantino movies and stuff, and it was like, oh, and then this image flashed in my head. I was like, it's RRR. It's Rama, right? Was Rama the fire one, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, he's looking all stern, and that music is playing, and it's like, it's not quite exactly that music, but like it sounds really familiar. So I put into the live chat, right, which, you know, Jason sees like 10 seconds after you type it in there. I'm like, I think it's the movie RR. I'm like, I'm coming to this stream late. Maybe somebody already said it, and I'm repeating myself. And it's like, he actually saw the comment while he was streaming. He's like, it could be RRR. He's like, let me go check Netflix. So he puts it on. He's like, hey guys, it's RRR. It's like,
you're internet famous, Rob. Finally, you made it.
Like, hooray! There's like 50 of us in the live stream. People are like, I thought the mystery would never get solved. Hooray for solving it.
Hooray for half asleep brain.
Half asleep brain. Image goes through your head, but I'm like,
more
oh
things
my
get
goodness.
solved while
I actually
falling
helped.
asleep or in the shower than I think any other two locations or states of mind.
Yes. I was like, surely after 2 days and arriving to the stream an hour and a half late, I will not be the one to identify this. Surely it has been done by now. But it turns out I was actually useful for something. So there you go. It was a fun story. I feel good about
job,
that.
Rob. Yeah, so we're still doing house stuff. This weekend, we went back to the apartment and cleaned, did a deep clean that we needed to do before we released the apartment back to them. And so my wife sent them. I mean, she went over there earlier than me because I had stuff to do outside of the house, and I met her over there, and she was finishing up the bathrooms. Almost, it could have been bad. She slipped in the tub and like grabbed the towel bar and broke it on the way down. I mean, it was like a whole thing.
The unlevel towel bar
that's in our new house. Thank you very much. It's still unlevel. As long as you have a towel on it, it doesn't look. I was like,
this will be a good excuse to get that towel bar level now, but no, it's the wrong one.
No, that was at the apartment. So. I went over there, helped her finish up, and then it looks pretty. I think it looks pretty good.
She's okay though, right? Like,
she's fine. As far as I mean, believe me, she would complain if she wasn't. So,
okay, good.
Yes,
no, I mean that's
as far as I know,
thing.
she is fine. Yes,
okay,
I was a little worried when she said she fell, but I guess she didn't fall. She slipped and then caught herself on the towel bar and broke it.
You can still hurt yourself that way, though. That's for sure.
You can. And we did a bunch of shopping and still unloading boxes. But the big thing that we did was we went to the Container Store, which if anybody's ever heard of the Container Store, that's
the actual name of the place.
That is the actual name
not just
of
a description.
So overall, I'm like, it's sort of like if you took some parts of Bed Bath and Beyond and shoved it into one store, and they had it mostly be containers. But it's kind of like that. The overall feel of the place isn't like I was kind of thinking that there would be more industrial like containers, that you could, but it's mostly like plasticky, gimmicky sort of containers that are stackable and you can do stuff with and all this other stuff. But they also do closets, and this house has no closet. I mean, it has closets, but it has nothing in them, and they're
no closet organizers.
Yeah, and we're desperately in need of that because we have no place to put anything really, and that's making it hard to get things unloaded when you don't have any place to put anything. So what we went in there and we sort of started doing some closet planning, and I'm perfectly open to any other ideas for people because I mean it's not cheap, but at the same time you got to do something, and I can't build it.
That's a buy once, cry once right there, that one, because once that's in there and the closet is full, you're not usually rebuying closet organizers.
That's right. And all of their little solutions are kind of customizable. Like if you decide, I need this, then you could buy more, and it's sort of thing. But so yeah, there's a good chance that that's going to happen pretty soon. But somebody asked us the other day. They said, "How what's your to-do list?" I'm like, "There's no list. It's just what can we do right now that we have 5
something comes up.
Minutes.
Let's address it."
Yes, the list is too long. In fact, it's so long that we've got. I wouldn't call it analysis paralysis, but it's like I can't deal with even thinking.
That is quite literally a good definition of feeling overwhelmed.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
So we're just trying to chip away at the edges of this thing until it gets small enough. So the container store thing happened because I came home from cycling. My wife was out of the house, and I was like, I'm just going to measure these closets. We just have to measure them. At some point, you need the measurements in order to figure out what you're going to do. I'm going to measure everything. So I went and measured everything, and our friend who works in organization, like she works for a lady who has a business that does custom organization stuff. And we had called her, and she said, yeah, just go to the container store. They will set up a closet. They'll do the whole thing for you and sell you all the stuff. And it's reasonably priced compared to what she does, I guess. So I was like, okay, well, I'll measure this stuff. And I went and measured everything, and I was like, well, do I measure from the baseboards? Do I measure from the molding? Do I measure from the walls? Because I made all the measurements. I was like, I don't know if I did it right. So I called the container store, and I'm like, dude, I just want to know how I'm supposed to do these measurements. And they're like, well, would you like to make an appointment? I'm like, oh, is that a thing? I just thought we would come in. They're like, no, you can make an appointment. I'm like, okay, well. So I made an appointment for that day. I was like, we're coming in at 5:00. My wife got home from what she was doing. I'm like, take a nap. We're going in at 5:00 to go to the container store because she was exhausted from doing Boy Scout stuff. Scouts stuff. So it ended up being pretty good. We ended up getting a bunch of stuff that we needed, and I got like the vanity in our bathroom has like space on either side, and there's not a lot of storage space underneath the vanity, and the shelves the 2 drawers. Are just like immediately filled up. Well, hello,
There's
ambulance.
A siren.
Yes.
You even saw it.
Now you can see it go past my face.
Quite the window right there.
So we ended up getting like these little plastic storagey containers that stack on either side, and then the lids of those things, which you took off in order to stack them, those fit in another closet that I could put on top of the wire racks to put like things that would fall through. It kind of worked out. So anyways, it's just that's it. I'm just whittling things down and trying to get stuff out of boxes and into other storage in this place. And we're looking at stuff. Those of you that have lived a number of years, you acquire crap. Or stuff that was good but is now crap, but it's been around for so long it just gets pushed to the back of your closet.
Oh, I wouldn't know anything about that with home theater equipment.
I know. So we're going through these. I'm like, listen, there's a we have nothing. Like we have no furniture, we have no rugs, we have nothing like that. But you know what we do have? An ass ton of towels, just like a metric dump truck full of towels that are all holes and stained and bleached and just in terrible condition. I'm like, listen, we got to get rid of this stuff. Let's just give it to an animal shelter or something. Surely they can use this stuff. So now that's what my wife has kind of been slowly whittling down is like, I just come home and there's like 3 piles of towels and sheets. And she's like, that's throwaway, that's giveaway, that's keep. I'm like, all right, I'll take the keep stuff and I'll wash it because I like doing all the washing. And then, we're taking care of everything else. So it's just slow going. We're getting there. Well, one of the big problems was that the mop and the vacuum cleaner were at the apartment waiting for us we didn't want to bring it over here until we finished cleaning over there. So we cleaned over there on Sunday, and now it's Tuesday, and I still haven't vacuumed here, but it needs it. These dogs are like big time making mess around here. So yeah, it's going.
Okay.
It's going. What did you watch, Rob? Did you watch anything?
It's how you eat an elephant.
Yeah, one bite at a time. What did you watch, Rob?
Yes, indeed. So this week, my sister and her family, they took a short little weekend getaway just to take a little break, which meant I was cat sitting, which meant I had access to their Netflix account while I was over there cat sitting, because I'm still not subscribing to Netflix myself, which meant it was time. It was finally time, Tom. It was time for Rob to finally watch KPop Demon Hunters.
I am actually very interested in this. Now, I will tell you that I will occasionally hear a song or a band, or some song or band will come across my social medias, or come within my sphere of influence, and I'm like, I have no idea who these people are, or what this song is, or why people are so obsessed with it, because it just sounds like a normal song to me, but people are like super obsessed with it. So one of those songs was all over social media from a Korean band called XG.
Oh, I see. Okay, going back.
This is going back a little ways. So I created a Pandora station from them, from them, or from that song. I don't remember which one it was. And it just serves up a whole bunch of K-pop stuff.
And I'm like, no shortage.
And I'm listening to it, and I get to after I listened to it for about, I don't know, maybe a day or so on and off, I was like, yep, I don't really like K-pop. So, and that's fine, right? And I just ignored the station. But then I heard about this movie, and I was like, oh yeah, I've still got that station. I turned the station on, and every other song was like from the soundtrack of K-pop Demon Hunters or whatever.
Yep.
I was like, I should probably check this movie out. So tell us about the movie, Rob.
Yes, indeed. So I don't want to get too spoilery here, but KPop Demon Hunters, it's about a K-pop band, a trio of women, young women who are the K-pop stars. Korean pop, by the way, is what K-pop stands for, as opposed to like J-pop, which would be Japanese pop. But yeah, pop music group. And in addition to being K-pop stars, you'll never guess this, but they also hunt demons. So I know
it's
I'm giving away a lot. Giving away a lot there. and look, here's the thing. You're going to go, okay, this is animated. So this is from Sony, and it does definitely have a very reminiscent look and style and feeling of movement and all that to the Spider-Verse animated movies. Okay. There is certainly a similarity there, including doing the things where they switch between sometimes animating on the ones and animating on the twos, meaning 24 frames a second or 12 frames a second to give that slightly jerkier type of look to it, but very much intentionally so. And interestingly, quite often during action or dance sequences, they'll intentionally lower the frame rate to give it a little bit more of that, like almost like you're seeing a series of still images look. But it's really well done, and really, really good looking movie. And I will even make the argument that I feel like, because it doesn't do the cutting between like individual flashing frames quite as rapidly and quite so blazingly fast as the Spider-Verse movies did, that this is actually like more enjoyable to watch in the action scenes, which are terrific. The action scenes in this are terrific, because it was like, oh, I can actually make out what they're doing, but it's still going really fast. Whereas the Spider-Verse movie, sometimes I was like, I don't quite know what I just saw. Like it was so fast that I don't really know what I saw. This one, I'm like, I feel like they nailed the pace of it, although it's still very, very rapid. So yeah, I don't want to give away too much. What I want to say about this movie is, first of all, it is not just the pure light fluff that you might expect it to be. It is a silly movie. It is a movie where they're not afraid to be like, it's an animated movie, and sometimes our characters are going to look like and do things that only a cartoon can do. That it's not going to be 100% realism looking, or like they very much focus on the facial expressions. The facial animation in this is superb, and not just the gigantic expressions where they actually had to like insert a different 3D model because this is 3D animation. It's like they made a whole new 3D model just so they could have the character make this face. It's like not a way we could manipulate the regular character model's face to make this expression. This is a whole new character model to put this expression on screen for half a second, and then that's all that model got used for. It's like, no, the subtle facial animations while they're just doing regular dialogue scenes and stuff, really, really excellent facial animation, and is super, super impressed by it. But what I love about this movie is, like, some people are describing this movie as honestly quite deep, and I totally get why people are saying that. I don't think the movie itself, like the overt dialogue or the themes and ideas expressed in this, are like on their own super duper deep. It's a movie about feeling shame about yourself and self-expression and self-acceptance and forgiving yourself, and those are not like brand new themes or anything like that. It doesn't do anything like in terms of that part of the thematic storytelling like super duper new. But what this movie excels at, and it's a difficult thing to nail down, if you were trying to write it, it's not an easy thing to do. It is a catalyst to make that wonderfully makes you think of your own life or other people who are close to you, and that's how it's deep. It's a catalyst to deep thoughts, which is a tough thing to do. Sometimes it happens by accident. I don't think this was by accident, but it's like the movie itself, I don't think is intrinsically super deep, but it makes you think deep thoughts, and I think that's why it's so popular, because it speaks to everyone, and it makes you feel something beyond just for the characters that you're watching. Every character in this movie super duper likable, and it's like, yes, you have this trio, and they are the female archetypes. Are they Charlie's Angels? Yes, they are. Are they the Powerpuff Girls? Yes, they are. It's like, it's exactly those three personalities, right? You've got the leader who's the more level-headed one. You've got the one who's really, really innocent and kind, and you've got the one who's much more aggressive and a bit angry. And it's like, it's exactly those trope, things. But it's like, it doesn't feel cliched. They're super likable. They're not afraid to have the main characters like pull quote unquote ugly facial expressions, which you might not always expect in this sort of thing. And then, the songs are terrific. They're super catchy. Every single one of them is super catchy. And it's a wonderful, beautiful story behind the scenes, because not every single one of the songs, but the majority of the songs were written by so it's hard to call her a former K-pop star, because she never quite got to the level of stardom that everyone expected. She's named EJ. Her stage name is EJ. And she happened to come into the scene at a time when there was kind of a conflict between, are we going to go for solo stars or are we going to go for group stars? And they're like, she's so good that we should build a group around her, but they weren't quite at where the groups were popular yet. And so they kind of tried to make her a solo star, and then the groups got super popular and she kind of fell under the radar. And then she had the terrible decision and the terrible audacity of turning 30 years old. Unforgivable crime in the K-pop scene. And I don't know why she did it. But she turned 30 years old, and that was kind of it.
I've also regretted that decision in my own life, I'm going to be honest with you.
And so she became a songwriter and a producer, really, really successfully so behind the scenes. But she wrote and produced the majority of the songs in this movie. And then the story is she sang the songs herself on the demo tracks, right? On the demo, hey, here's the basic of the song. You're going to go and produce this and use the voice actors from the movie and do this. And they're like, she's too good for her not to be the voice of the main character, at least the singing voice of the main character. So EJ is the singing voice of Rumi, the main character. There is a different actress doing the voice acting for the dialogue scenes. But it's like, it's kind of a great story. And now she's got 5 number 1 hits from this movie. Not just as the writer or producer, but as the vocalist, as the lead vocalist. And it's like, it's kind of finally her time, and she's doing all these interviews, and she's super humble and appreciative of all of it and everything. It's like, it's a fantastic feel-good story behind the scenes. My criticism of this movie, if you want to call it that, is not only did I want it to be, it kind of needed to be longer. This is like essentially a 90-minute movie, because the credits run quite long, and they have Netflix's whole here's everybody who translated it into every other language on the planet. So when it's 143 or an hour and 43 minutes, it's like 13 minutes of that is like credits at the end. And there is a little bit of behind the scenes footage, which is really nice during the credits. but they were saying how like the original draft of this movie was like, if it was just every page that was drafted made it to the screen, would have been like a 3-hour movie. And
oh, wow.
And so they've announced there's going to be sequels because it's been such a huge success, and that's great because it's going to give them time to now go back and do the things that were, had necessarily cut from this movie to hit the running time. And it was like, purely as a writing criticism, like again, I don't want to give away too much, but there is a minor conflict going on between the main character and her adoptive mother. Her biological mother died when she was an infant. They were part of the previous KPop Demon Hunter group. It kind of goes by generations. And so one of the other members of her mother's group adopts her and raises her. And so there's that familiar thing and the kind of generational trauma that's a through line there. And that wasn't entirely resolved on screen. Now, the compliment that I can pay is that there is enough there that you can fill in the gap that's in there. It feels like there's an entire act missing to this movie. It feels like there was an entire act of either a flashback or because we're dealing with demons, and so you can have characters who have passed away, but you can still talk to them because it sounds like it felt like there was something where Rumi, the main character, had a conversation in some way with her biological mother. It feels like that was a part of this script, and I'll bet it's going to be in the sequels in some way of doing that, and I bet it was in the original draft for this movie. But for the runtime, and honestly, the pacing worked out really well, that's all removed. But it's like, there's enough there that I'm like, I can fill that in. Headcanon it might be, but it still all holds together and it still makes sense. So huge. I'm not the first one to praise this movie. Huge praise for this movie. I think I don't know who wouldn't enjoy this movie. It's really, really good. So watch KPop Demon Hunters. It's a fantastic time.
We love musicals around there. This household loves musicals, so there's no reason why. And I have been trying to get us to watch something else. We didn't watch anything this week other than kind of older, not that much older, like in the last 3 months, like European gymnastics competitions is what we've been watching, because we can sit there and talk through it, and basically, they're like, oh, that was really good. I'm like, yeah, it's all really good. What are you talking about? Like, oh, this was a pretty basic vault. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like, I don't understand. I don't understand how they figure out. I mean, I do understand the concept of it. When I'm looking at it, it all looks impossible.
Yes,
so
it does.
They should all get gold medals as far as
one very last thing I want to say about K-Pop Demon Hunters. It is only on Netflix right now. And so watching it, I was like, so normally, you know how when the music comes on in a movie, it's like 20 decibels louder than the dialogue. And that's not entirely untrue here. The songs are definitely louder, but this is maybe the first case where it's like, I want them to be even louder. I want the songs to be even louder. And the bass was too clean. I was like, I kind of want that like intentional bit of distortion in the bass, because like some of these songs are so enjoyable and they hit so hard that I was like, I want to be like absolutely blasted by the beat in this song, and I was like, it's a little too clean. It's not quite loud enough. So I don't know if that's a criticism. That's again like saying this movie wasn't long enough. It's like that's some pretty complimentary criticism if you want to say it. Yeah.
All right. Since I have nothing else to say, let's talk about the podcast. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to the website, find our shows, our show notes, any links, any products or articles that we will be mentioning, as well as a link to our Flickr album where you can follow along with the pictures that we will be referencing in answering these questions, your questions. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant. Contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is go to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and send us a PayPal donation. So this week we had two people do that. We had Dan and Raf. So thank you very much to Dan and Raf.
Yeah, that's nice to see. Dan and Raf, thank you so much for those PayPal donations. We really appreciate your financial support.
I hit this microphone like I get paid per time I hit it. I don't know what to do about this. It's just in a different orientation than I'm used to because of this.
Yeah,
where I am, and I don't know. I might have to do something about this situation. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to do something. We also have our Patreon, patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to be a monthly contributor. We currently have 128 patrons. We want to thank each and every one of you.
Yes, indeed. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. A big thanks to our 128 patrons over there. It's crept back up. That's nice to see. Is there something interesting at the bottom of Tom's glass, or is it just
I think that milk
not
is
full
curled.
enough?
I
see.
We're going to find out the hard way. It might go running out of here pretty soon. Let's see. If you can't support us financially, support us in some other way, we'll mention you here. Joe gave me permission to use his photos from Cedia.
That's correct.
On avgadgets.com. If you haven't been to AV Gadgets, we did break the big news about Sofa Baton, and we actually mentioned on other outlets as being the breakers of it. So, yes, Andrew was very pleased with himself when he saw himself.
Everyone assumed there was an embargo. Andrew decided to straight up ask. So there you go.
Andrew asked, and they said, "No, you can talk about it." Everybody else was like, "Well, I don't think we're supposed to talk about this." And Andrew's like, "Hey, can we?" They were like, "We don't care." Boom.
In fact, we
immediately.
Can quote them. They said, of course you can mention it. Okay, that's highly unusual. Normally, the assumption is you absolutely cannot until the date that was said in the email. That's like not an unreasonable assumption. You put a date in the email, and it's like, okay, so we don't talk about it until then. But there you go.
Everybody else is like, oh, they broke the embargo. No, we didn't. We also got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from RS. Says that it's been a while since he's written to us, but he's really happy to hear that me and my family have been able to start moving into their new house. I'm very glad to hear the big dog can finally move back in with them. He's right there.
Oh, I see.
Literally right there. I can't move my chair back, which is going to be a problem when I get some more coffee and try to rinse out whatever's floating in here.
Yeah. Maybe you should stop sipping on that, Tom. Just an idea.
Jason says he always seems to learn something interesting when he listens to us. We got thanks from Mark, from Ilango, from Joe. We got the kick about hearing Tom Raz leave, but thank him at the beginning of last week's episode. Also, bookkeeping is one of the few English language words with two of the letter K in a row. Since I mentioned that was not a thing in English, so whatever.
Joe's listening.
And since the March audio Conan AWG speaker model came up, name tripped us up, which it did and still does.
It did just again. Yes.
Yeah. Adam, who's a member of the 2 Hour Plus Club from before, we were forced to say now stay in and listen to something for a while there. That's
rather than now go out and listen to something. Our normal sign off there. We were forced to say now stay in and listen to something for a while there. What could that have been?
So he only remembers the second secret code, but not actually what those. He remembers the
description of what the secret code was.
He's supposed to say, but he can't remember.
Not the literal words.
Yeah. Well, so looks like you got a problem there, buddy. Sorry.
We can confirm for you though, just to clear it up. There was no iguana involved.
There was no iguanas.
That was not part of it.
No iguanas were harmed in the naming of this.
That is not going to make sense to anybody else. But
doesn't make sense to me either. So we also got thanks from Raph, from Henry, from John, who thanks Joe for doing the CDA 2025 special episode. He really enjoyed it, and Mosin. So let's do those names now. RS, Jason, Mark, Ilango, Joe, Adam, Raph, Henry, John, and Mosin. Thank you for thanking us.
Very much. Yeah, and I'll say the names one more time so they came from my lips. We got Aris, Jason, Mark, Ilango, Joe, Adam, Raph, Henry, John, and Mosin. Thank you all so much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
So I'm going to have to rub my eye for a second because there's definitely something in there. In the news, TCL held an event in China to announce its new high-end displays that it will be launching in 2026. And unsurprisingly, RGB mini LED backlighting will be the hot new feature. But things actually start off without RGB mini LEDs with the new X11L model for the luxury flagship 2026 X11 series. TCL is sticking with the all-blue mini LED backlighting and quantum dots, or super quantum dots, or SQD.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, as they are now claiming the formulations used in the X11L will allow it to reach full Rec 2020 color gamut coverage, which would be a first if true. Somebody will test it and tell us. They're also packing the 98-inch X11L model with nearly 21,000 zones of local dimming and saying it will be able to hit 10,000 nit peaks. In other words, they're aiming to make the X11L the first consumer television that will be able to show the full HDR10 specifications, no tone mapping needed. Just in time for all the content to be like, well, since nobody can do it, let's just tone map it to 1,000.
Right.
It will remain 4K in resolution and also come in 75-inch and 85-inch sizes. The other notable change is that it will use TCL's own WHVA LCD panels for wider viewing angles, so they seem to be happy with how those panels have performed in the 2025 QM8K and QM9K series. The QM9 and all-new QM10 series are where the RGB mini LED backlights are going to show up. TCL said there have been many challenges in adjusting the processing to perfectly mix the individual green, red, and blue mini LED backlights in conjunction with the LCD layer on top. So that is why the luxury flagship X11L is sticking with blue mini LEDs and quantum dots this next coming year.
So it's a little bit of sort of experimentation that's going on with the new series, and they're like, maybe we don't put it in the absolute tip-top luxury flagship, just like how this year, 2025, the X11K did not have the WHVA panels. That was a new thing that started in the QM8K series, the wider viewing angle WHVA panels. X11K still had the traditional VA panels that TCL's CSOT manufacturing division makes. So they're the flagships. They're like, we test it out, and if it works well, we put it in the flagship next year.
All right. Welcome to alpha versions or beta versions. I don't know what you're talking about. The QM9 will range from 65 to 115 inches with nearly 3,000 zones of local dimming and 2,000 nits peak brightness. So the zone count and peak brightness are actually a notable step down from the 2025 QM9K series. So there's no K? They just took the K off?
They haven't put a letter. I'm assuming it's going to be an L. Because the X11L, so I'm assuming it's going to be a QM9L and a QM10L coming up, but yeah.
So, but that older series does not have RGB mini LEDs. The all-new QM10 series is a big leap up and comes very close to the 11L specs. If the X11L specs, if the claimed specs end up being true, 9,000 nits peak brightness and full Rec 2020 color gamut coverage, nearly 17,000 zones of local dimming, and available in 85, 98, and 115 inch screen sizes, which are all too big for my room, which is a problem.
Then you don't have to get a QM10, Tom.
My wife is like, are we sitting too close to this TV? I'm like, you and Rob should talk to each other, because I feel like we're not. The screen size itself is fine, but I think being physically close to the TV as we are is a problem. But I think the real problem is that there is this big, massive, round ottoman that came with this terrible couch that we're sitting on, and it makes it so there's almost no room between the couch and the front of the TV. So it just looks like it's a continuous thing, and I think it throws her off. So once we get a real couch, and back it up, probably, because I'm going to have to back it up in order to get the surround speakers where they need to be, back it up maybe 6 inches, I think that's going to make a 65-inch, probably not even bigger than a 65-inch TV.
Wow.
Maybe 70 something, but I don't really think it's going to be bigger than 65-inch TV in there.
Wow.
Look just about
more
right.
affordable. That's not a bad thing.
Well, that's what I told her. I said, we're going to save so much money on a TV. She's like, why do we need a TV? I'm like, listen, lady, I lost a TV in this flood. I'm getting a new OLED. Yeah. All right,
you lost an 83-inch TV. Yes.
They'll launch. Anyways, TCL launched first in China next year, but they're planned to be global TV models by the end of 2026. So there you go. All right, for the second time this year, starting October 3rd, which is very close to my birthday, Microsoft is raising Xbox console price in the United States again. You're not going to be able to give these things away. 500 gigabyte Series S and the 1 terabyte Series S go up $20 each to $400 and $450 respectively. Nobody's going to notice that. The 1 terabyte Series X with no disk drive and the 1 terabyte with a disk drive go up $50 to $600 and $650 respectively. People will notice that. The 1 terabyte with the disk drive launched at $499 or $500 basically 5 years ago for the record. So they're up
gone up $150 since then,
which is
insane.
A lot.
Imagine if you bought
tariffs.
A computer that came out 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That is now $150 more expensive than when it launched.
But no more powerful. Don't worry about that.
Definitely not more powerful, and nowhere near as powerful as a computer you could buy today.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
It should be going down in price. I don't think you guys understand how this works. So the 2 terabyte Series X goes up $70 to $800.
Yeah. Come on. $800 for an Xbox? Who is buying that?
I don't, not me.
Who is buying that? That's absurd.
So Microsoft says, quote, "We understand that these changes are challenging, for your bottom line, and they were made with careful consideration, again, for your bottom line. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and providing value for Xbox players," end quote.
Yeah.
So they didn't say tariffs, but it's tariffs. I mean, it's 100% tariffs. And this is the thing. We all know this. We've all experienced this across our lifetimes. When prices go up because of something, you know what they don't do when that something goes away is go back down.
Indeed.
It just doesn't happen.
Although in this case, I mean, we're talking about a video game console. So if they could, I think in this case they might bring that price down. But this is wild.
I mean, the scalper, illegal import back alley market for things is just going to go nuts in the United States. And I want to have nothing to do with it.
No,
I want to have nothing to do with it. But my Lord, $800 for an Xbox.
I don't think this is helping Xbox gain market share on the other video game consoles.
I think. Didn't Sony peace out? Sony's out, right, of consoles. They're not making consoles anymore after this one. Is that right?
No, not at all. No, they've got PlayStation. They're still going. They're going strong. They're by far the number one.
I'd just peace out if I were them. Just be like, we're making games. You guys, you just digitally download it. We're not even making discs anymore.
Xbox are the ones who might just piece out of the hardware side of it entirely, because their whole thing is getting it streamed on every other device. So just stream the darn thing. Yeah.
So prices went up globally back in May, but these October price increases are just for the USA. So,
although it will almost certainly splash onto Canada as well, because the way all of the importing and distribution networks and everything work, they're so closely tied together that price increases in the U.S. pretty much inevitably lead to price increases in Canada. It's pure rumor at this point, but there seems to be quite a bit of fairly reliable scuttlebutt behind the scenes that Nintendo is preparing to increase the price on the Switch 2 console by $50. So there you go. Maybe it wasn't such a bad idea that I waited out in person to buy that third Switch 2 for my niece. Yeah. I think I made the right decision there.
I think so too. Comments. Jason heard Julian's question a couple of weeks ago, in which he described how Sofa Baton's X1S hub is located outside of his home theater room. So Julian had poked a small hole in his wall and fed one of the Sofa Baton's hub's IR extender cables through it to give him IR control inside his theater. But the little IR emitter on the end of that extender cable didn't seem to be able to reach his ceiling-mounted JVC projector at the back of the room. Jason wanted to mention that it might not be the little IR emitter's fault. It's doing its best. Don't be mad. He has a JVC NX7 projector, and he was having issues controlling it with IR no matter which remote control he used. The Harmony Elite, the Sofa Baton X1, and even JVC's own remote that came with the projector. It turns out there is an eco mode power-saving setting that, when it's on, deactivates the rear IR sensor on the projector whenever it's in standby. The front IR sensor supposedly remains functional, but with that eco mode on, he would sometimes have to use the physical on-off button on the projector itself. So he turned off that eco mode setting, and ever since then, all of the remotes have worked just fine, even from a whole room away. So perhaps Julian won't actually need to make any changes to his Sofa Baton X1S setup after all. And I guess you're showing this picture here?
I did show it, yes.
Yeah, so which one is the eco mode? Just
says,
says,
the
just,
one that says
just
eco
turn
mode.
Eco mode off. You just
Eco
don't
mode
need
off.
eco mode. Okay,
Is that.
so it's not
but
like a eco mode, like something within the eco mode. It is the whole eco mode that you turn off.
It's within the right hand tab, which is like other settings up there.
That's a clear,
in the
whatever that
user
image
menu.
is that supposed to be a keyboard? What is that?
I don't know what
is it. An RGB
exactly.
jack? I don't. Is the multiple power plugs daisy chained together? What is that?
It's not a great icon. It's not immediately understandable what that icon is. There doesn't seem to be a gazillion settings in there, at least. So
yeah,
but it's just called eco mode, and it's on or off. And turning that thing off let the IR sensors work a whole lot better. So that's certainly worth a try, because that's not exactly expensive or time consuming to give that a flick of the setting there. So yes, thank you very much to who was that? Was that Jason who was talking to Julian?
Yeah.
Two J names there, so I got them mixed up. But thank you, Jason, because I was not aware of that.
Oh, here's another J name, Joe. During our CETA 2025 special episode, Rob and Joe talked about AoIP, or Audio over Internet Protocol, about how it was a noticeable trend at the show, with a lot of companies and processors touting support for sending all audio signals digitally over standard Ethernet cables to compatible amplifiers. I just still don't understand how they're going to sell that to the audiophiles. You need a garden. You need to put a garden hose someplace in there. Aside from AoIP itself, the terms AES67, 66 or 7. Your kids love it. My kid.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of 6 or 7. All right.
My kid cracks up.
I can't say I entirely understand the reference. I have heard it. My niece is saying it all the time, but I can't say
I actually have done research into it, and it's so remarkably stupid that that's the only thing you have to know, is that it's dumb, and it's funny because
kids are
it's
allowed.
Dumb.
Kids are allowed.
Please. We used to say totally tubular back in my day, so let's not judge.
Yeah. There are worse things your kid could be saying than 6 or 7 and laughing to themselves.
Yes.
It could be a lot worse than that.
So the term AES67 and Dante showed up a lot. So if you're unfamiliar with those, you might want to learn more about them. Storm Audio held an Introduction to AoIP webinar with a good explanation that he is happy to recommend. So you have to register with your email address, but it's free to access after doing so. So there you go. That's comments. That's
a good recommendation. I appreciate that. I might check that out, because I'm not entirely familiar with the whole AES67 thing myself, so I wouldn't mind an explainer that gets me up to speed on that at all.
My kid's cracking up. If he ever watches this, he won't. He is on the floor right now.
I'm glad it's that easy.
It is really stupid. Questions. Ilango's finishing up his whole house audio speaker setup. He bought a whole bunch of Sonance Mag 6R in-ceiling speakers that we recommended when they were on one of the frequent sales at Best Buy. Mm-hmm. He installed 3 of them in the kitchen ceiling, another 3 of them in the primary bedroom's ensuite. So there's 3 speakers in his bathroom?
There's 3.
Oh, that's a lot of speakers in the big bathroom. Some of those master bathrooms are like...
That's right.
It's a whole, like...
They describe them as spa-like, and it's not a improper description.
So he only wants mono sound in both of these rooms. He already has proper stereo to mono summing adapters that can be fed by the outputs of his Apple Airport Express AirPlay 2 source. To power the speakers, he can use either the remainder of his Dayton Audio MA 1260 distribution amplifier channels, or you could use the Emotiva's Mini X A100 stereo amp that he has on hand. Dayton's 12 outputs are all rated at 80 watts into 4 ohms. The Emotiva Mini X A100 is also rated 80 watts per channel into 4 ohms. But the Dayton is rated at just 45 watts per channel into 8 ohms, while the Emotiva is rated 60 watts into 8 ohms. The Dayton, though, can bridge any 2 channels together, any 2 channels, at which point is rated at 120 watts into 8 ohms, but with the warning that you should not connect anything less than an 8 ohm load to it while it's in bridged mode. The Mag 6R speakers are rated at 8 ohm nominal impedance with 125 watts of power handling. So, what's the best way to connect everything? He did some reading online, and some people suggested simply wiring all 3 speakers in each of the two rooms in series, but some other folks disagreed and said that two of the speakers should be in series while the third speaker is wired in parallel. So that we say, and will he be able to power all three speakers in each of the two rooms with just a single amplifier channel for each? Or should he maybe run one of the rooms off the Emotiva and then run the second room off the Dayton? Should he use the Dayton and use a bridged pair? Or should you bite the bullet and simply have a separate amplifier channel for each speaker, 6 in total? So generally speaking, in this sort of situation, the idea here is that you want to keep the impedance around 8 ohms, because that's what they are. They're 8 ohm speakers.
I mean, 16 is totally fine. There's 16 no is fine, problem with a 16.
But
yes.
There's a whole bunch of speakers here, and if you want to power them off of, in theory, all off of one channel, you can't just wire them all in parallel or all in series, because it'll either half the impedance over and over again or double the impedance over and over again. So you want to kind of bounce it back and forth so that you still end up right around 8 or 16. Those would be the two options that you could basically very easily get to,
and
depending on the number of speakers you have.
I mean, we are sort of making an assumption about the size of the room, but even aside from assumptions about the size of the room, I don't think I would power all three of the speakers in one of these rooms off of a single amplifier channel on either of these. Like, I wouldn't want a rated 60 watts into 8 ohms powering 3 speakers all by itself in what I'm assuming is a reasonably sized room. The kitchen is almost certainly open to other parts of the house.
Sure.
So I don't think I would use a single amplifier channel from any of them to power all 3, but I don't see any problem taking the bridged 2 of the amplifier channels off of the Dayton, now rated 120 watts into 8 ohms, and that is a perfectly reasonable wattage rating on that. Having that, a bridged pair, powering all 3 of the speakers in the room, I don't see any problem with that. The likelihood that you're trying to reach over 100 decibels is pretty unlikely in your ensuite bathroom or in your kitchen. This is almost certainly for background music and maybe PA purposes or something like that. So yeah, I think that's what I would likely do. I would likely bridge a pair on the Dayton. If you have 4 amplifier channels available, I would just do that twice over. I'd have a bridged pair for the ensuite and a bridged pair for the kitchen. And I mean, the thing, the Mag 6R speakers, yes, they're rated at 8 ohms. If you look at the impedance plot, they're basically a 6 ohm speaker, which is very common. If you actually see what the impedance plot is, it's like, it's a 6 ohm speaker. So it's like, okay, if you wired all 3 of those in series, it's now an 18 ohm resistance. If you did 2 of them in series and 1 of them in parallel beside, then it's kind of wonky, because it's not like 2 12 ohms and then divided by 2 to get back to 6. It's like above 6. It's going to be pretty close to 8 or 9 at that point when you do that. So like, I don't see a problem doing it either way. The only one to avoid is don't do all 3 in parallel. That's going to be a problem. Don't do all 3 in, meaning you've got a separate pair of speaker wire going to each speaker, and then all 3 of those leads for the red and all 3 of those leads from the black all go into a single amplifier. Don't do 3 parallel, but if you did 2 in series plus 1 in parallel, or honestly all 3 in series, I don't see there being any problem. If you just don't have enough amplifier channels left over on that Dayton, like let's say you've only got 2 that are spare, then I would probably go ahead and I would put the Emotiva into service, probably for the kitchen, which I'm assuming is the room that's going to be open to the rest of the house. And there it's like, I power 1 speaker off of one channel and a pair, wired together in series off of the other channel. Will be totally fine doing that.
Okay. I scrolled up because I was looking at something. Leighton's home theater room is 12 by 12 by 10. His seats are 2.5 feet away from the back wall, and his front speakers are 2 feet away from the front wall. He's been trying his best to tame the reflections in this room and achieve the flattest possible frequency response. He's straddled GEC 244 bass traps panels across all 4 vertical corners, and he has mounted a GEC 242 absorption panels on all 4 walls. So those of you who don't understand, 2 feet by 4 feet by however many inches deep. So
that's right.
The bass traps are 4 inches deep, and the ones he has mounted on the walls are 2 inches deep.
But the ones in the corner that the insulation is 4 inches deep, they are straddling the corner. So there's necessarily built in an air gap behind those 4-inch thick panels because it's straddling the corner.
Now he's trying to finalize his ceiling. He already mounted another pair of 242 panels directly above his seats. And then he also has a pair of grid fuser diffusion panels on either side of those and near the two front corners. He has top front and top rear in-ceiling Atmos speakers that cannot be moved at this point. There are also HVAC supply and return ducts, an attic access port, a ceiling fan, his projector, and his pull-down projection screen, all mounted on the ceiling.
Yeah, it's a pretty packed ceiling up
12 by 12, and he's got a projector screen.
That's right.
That's
ambitious.
That's a lot. He's been thinking he wants to add more cloud absorption panels above his LCR speakers, but isn't sure how to identify the ideal locations. The grid fuser diffusion panels can be moved around, but nothing else in the current ceiling can be. So can we tell him how to determine the ideal spots for his LCR cloud absorption panels?
Like, my honest answer is that I'm not touching that ceiling. But since he seems to have no qualms about doing so, the usual theory is that the absorption that you might mount on your ceiling would go at the first reflection points. Yeah. It would go at the first, just like you would have panels on your sidewalls, which you do. You can have panels on your ceiling at the first reflection point. So they wouldn't go directly above your speakers, which is a good thing, because if they were going to, we can see from the image that would be covering the attic access panel, and we probably don't want to be doing that. So, I mean, essentially, it's going to be, halfway from your seat to the front speakers, right? You just go halfway in between and then draw a line straight up to the ceiling, and that's where it's going to be, which from appearances would pretty much make it one panel in front of your ceiling fan and one panel behind it. That's really about all you can do. So maybe you take that white absorption panel that's close to the back wall right now and you move it in front of the ceiling fan. Then if you're concerned about not having treatment directly above your head, I would take the diffusion panels and move them to where that white panel is, towards the back of the room. Now, whether it's the diffusion panels up at the front corners or more towards the middle, I don't think it's really going to make a difference, because I don't actually think those diffusion panels are making any audible difference. But given that you probably don't want to take anything down, and this is more about a repositioning, then that's how I would do it. So yeah, honestly, the only thing I would think about is, okay, where's the first reflection point on the ceiling? Put a panel there and you're done. As Tom likes to say, Bob's your uncle at that point.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this and wondering what I would do. First of all, there's no room left anywhere.
I know, exactly.
Up here.
Yeah.
I would get rid of those diffusion panels if it were me, and just put absorption panels hanging down, like a nice big air gap behind them, I guess would be the only thing I would do. But I wish I could see the rest of the room, to be honest with you. But yeah, the 12 by 12 by 10, there's not a ton of space to do stuff anyways. And you've done a lot.
Yes, you have.
He's not specific about what he's trying. He just wants it to be better, right? That's what he says. He just wants it to be better.
I got to tell you, the chances of you audibly hearing a difference after making any of this change is slim to none, I got to say. But yeah, if you're going to have an absorption panel on your ceiling, the first reflection point is the place to put it. So that to me is a moving, not an adding in this case. I might rearrange some things, and I wouldn't add a thing.
Infinite Gary. Gary has been seeing some chatter on about Per-Listen speakers on YouTube lately. Mm-hmm. One of the things that often gets lauded about them is a supposed controlled directivity, according to Per-Listen's marketing, which is where the reviewers are getting this information, by the way.
Well, that's kind of one of the things he's going to ask about, but yes.
We can thank their patent-pending DPC array, DPC standing for Directivity Pattern Control, in their S-Series and R-Series speakers, which consists of the main tweeter being centered within a waveguide lens and then having two more tweeters, one above the main tweeter and one below it. And those two additional tweeters are incorporated into a curved top and bottom edges of the waveguide lens so they can be physically very close to the main tweeter. Meanwhile, the new A-Series speakers only have a single tweeter that's housed within a large diameter waveguide that supposedly controls directivity on its own. It doesn't need the extra tweeters.
You got to bring the price down somehow. Yeah.
So first of all, are the YouTubers correct about Per-Listen's speakers having controlled directivity, or are they simply parroting Per-Listen's own marketing materials? It's the second one. They may have some ability to do it. It may be that the off-axis response is such that they are, hearing something, but they're mostly. And when I write reviews and I am parroting what the marketing material says, I will start every sentence like that specifically with "per listen says," right, or "the company says," or "according to their spec sheet it is," something like that. So I'm not saying it because they're saying it. Now, not everybody does that in their reviews, but that's how I do it so that hey, this is what they say, and then I'll do my listening test and go, yes, I heard something similar to that or not. But let's put it into a similar, another vein, right? If somebody hands you a sandwich and says, I used special mustard on this sandwich, and you take a bite, what are you going to be tasting for first? No matter what's on the sandwich, you're going to notice the mustard because they said, I put special mustard on this, even if they didn't. So you may say, there was definitely mustard on that sandwich. Didn't taste all that special to me, but I certainly tasted mustard. Okay. Is very similar to what's happening here. They say we are controlling directivity, so you listen for controlled directivity, and even if you don't hear it, guess what you're talking about? Controlled directivity. So it ends up working in their favor even if you don't hear it.
No, I mean, I would say it's both, because there are some reviewers or just influencers on YouTube who are really just parroting the marketing material, and there's really nothing much more to it than that. But there are reviewers who have taken full-on clippable measurements, and they can show you the measurements and the graphs that it's like, there is a difference in the dispersion pattern, and you would assume it has something to do with the drivers that are making the sound. That's not a gigantic leap in logic.
Right.
So I mean, look, we know waveguides have an effect. Like, this is not new claims or new science. So the notion of using a waveguide around a tweeter in order to make the dispersion pattern something other than what just a flush-mounted or slightly surface-mounted tweeter, the natural dispersion of that would be, versus having it embedded inside of a waveguide. Like, that's quite established science at this point. We've got oodles and oodles of reliable measurements to show that does have an effect on the dispersion. So it's not like Perlissen's making some kind of outlandish red flag claim that their speakers, that their tweeters that are inside of a very obvious and visible waveguide now have different dispersion than if the tweeter was naked and flush mounted or sealant or
and even the dual tweeters or multiple tweeters, using other drivers to control the off-axis response and the directivity or whatever. A mid-range driver
above and below the tweeter. This is very well established as a Dapolito array. Yeah.
You can also look at RBH's flagship speakers from many, many years ago, which I can't remember the name of. They had like 4 or 6 tweeters or something, and the idea was the same. They were, they had all these drivers all over the place, and they were trying to make sure that the tweeter sound was controlled in comparison to these other drivers, and they had them like kind of in a like an arch almost on those speakers. And there's science behind it. They didn't invent anything here.
It's wave pattern interference. You have more than one thing creating sound, or in the case of just the one tweeter driver, but this large waveguide around it, you have wave interference that's coming from, there are reflections from that tweeter that are bouncing off of the curved surfaces of the waveguide and then interacting with the sound waves that are coming directly out of the tweeter. But in either case, it is wave pattern, wave interference patterns that are being used here, so that you don't have just a perfectly hemispherical source of sound coming out, or a very beam source of sound. Once the sound waves themselves reach a wavelength that is, shorter than the diameter of the driver itself, then that starts to become a very beamy type of thing. Putting inside of a waveguide or having other drivers around it can spread that back out due to wave pattern interference. So that's established stuff. So there's nothing like I'm looking at Perlissen's claims and going, oh, there's no possible way. That's a giant red flag. No, it looks completely reasonable. And then, some people on YouTube are just purely parroting the marketing, but others have full-on taken measurements, and they can show you the graphs where it's like, yep, the directivity is definitely changed because of this design.
Yeah. He then asks, what makes controlled directivity a good thing and an advantage for per-listen and speakers to have? So there's a whole slew of arguments you could make here for why it would be good and why it would be bad. But the number one thing, when you see a company go all in on a specific advantage that they have over other speakers, and you go, well, that doesn't really seem like it's, first of all, unique or an advantage. That they are trying to give themselves some sort of leg up over the competition. So, is it a good thing to have controlled directivity? That can be. It can also be negative. If your off-axis response, if you're controlling your off-axis response so that your speakers sound very good from one or from a slew of angles, but then outside of those angles they sound different. Well, that can be great in a room with a lot of reflections because you're able to more easily target the sound towards a specific area. Whereas in a room that's highly controlled as far as the reflections and everything else, you're like, now, I've got to be really careful with the placement of my speakers because if they aren't fit for this room exactly, then suddenly I'm not able to get the same response to every single person in the theater. So is it a good thing? Can be.
And we do need to thank Dr. Floyd Toole and a ton of the research that he did, predominantly the recommendations that Dr. Floyd Toole came up with were that it's like the uniformity of the dispersion. It's that across the entire audible frequency range, if the dispersion coming out of your speaker is quite uniform, then our brain has an easier time of saying like, okay, that is a direct sound versus that is a reflected sound or an echo coming from the same sound source. I'm not confused that I've got like two actually completely different sound sources mixing me up and drawing my attention to that. And it also just helps our brain, figure out the timing and the distances of our walls and things like that. We're just used to that from experience. And so, as I was saying, once the diameter of the driver is larger than the wavelength of the sound that it's producing, if you're using quite large bass woofers, and maybe you don't have a dedicated mid-range driver or something like that, well, it's going to start forming quite a beam as it plays higher and higher frequencies. To get around that, maybe you have your tweeter or you introduce a mid-range driver so that the bass woofer doesn't have to play so high in frequency. So that requires that you implement a crossover in your speaker, and it's all just getting it to line up so that as you transition from one driver, a high-frequency driver, to a mid-range driver to a bass driver, that you're not getting these like, well, it's getting narrow and then wide and narrow and then wide in terms of the off-axis dispersion. You want it all to be nice and uniform, and if maybe there's a little bit of a slope or a narrowing, but it's all gradual and even and smooth and uniform. That's the goal. So yeah, waveguides on tweeters can definitely help in that because they're going to have really wide dispersion as they're playing down to a lower frequency. So maybe you used an 8-inch driver and it's a two-way design and that tweeter has been playing quite low, but it's like that 8-inch driver is starting to get kind of narrow where they cross over and the tweeter's really, really wide, but then you put the tweeter into an 8-inch waveguide and all of a sudden it's kind of contained its directivity to be similar to how the 8-inch driver is playing those frequencies, and now you have a much more uniform off-axis response. And then the above and below drivers, above and below the tweeter, that's like THX was a big proponent and a big advocate for having wide horizontal dispersion but narrow vertical dispersion, because they were finding that, hey, the closest surfaces into your rooms, just strict distance, is going to be your floor and your ceiling in most homes. Most homes, 8-foot ceiling, 9-foot ceiling, something like that. So it's like, yeah, your side wall, at least to one side of the speaker, it might be 12, 14 feet away or something like that, but it's like, your speaker is basically halfway up the height of your room. Is going to be like 4 feet to the floor, 4 feet to the ceiling. So if you're going to get a bounce off of a surface, it's probably going to be your floor or ceiling. Yeah. If we narrow the directivity in the vertical direction, well, we don't get quite as much destructive interference from the bounce off the floor and the bounce off the ceiling, but we want that really wide, even horizontal dispersion. So it's, you put a driver above and below, you tune the crossovers just right, and you can form the wave interference patterns that you don't have wide dispersion above and below, but you do have wide dispersion side to side. So yeah, it's all established silence. Perlissen's not doing anything new, and they've chosen a tried and true method of achieving it.
So he asked, lastly, is controlled directivity something that inherently comes along with a given driver speaker in given driver placement in a speaker? For example, his older Dynaudio Confidence series speakers have 2 tweeters, and Dynaudio claims they use those plus a very complex crossover to create DDC, or Dynaudio Directivity Control. It's apparently been around for a while, with wide horizontal dispersion but narrow vertical dispersion to lessen the ceiling and floor reflections. And their newest Confidence series are now using a single tweeter in a precision-formed aluminum waveguide they're calling DDC lens, which works in conjunction with 2 mid-range drivers above and below. Sounds awfully similar. No, it's exactly the same. It's the same sort of thing. So, can you just throw two drivers, one above and one below your tweeter? Use a simple crossover to send the right frequencies to the drivers, and then you have magically controlled directivity, or whatever.
Well, you will have impacted it in some way. It'll be different than just the tweeter by itself, flush mounted on the surface of the speaker. It'll be different.
So one of the things to think of, so this is getting, we can go way down a rabbit hole here. So yes, there will be some controlled directivity by doing that, but at the same time, it is way more than that. You need to look at the frequency response. You have to do a lot of measurements. You have to do a lot of off-axis stuff. You have to, within the crossover and maybe even some sort of DSP, you have to, be very careful with how you do this. Not only that, a lot of times, what we don't think of as people who love speakers, love sound, and love, how certain things look. We don't often think about how the front baffle affects sound at different frequencies. So we often talk about how subwoofers are omnidirectional, that doesn't matter which the sound is coming from everywhere all at once. And it's because the wavelengths are so long. As the wave leaves the driver, it wraps around because it's so long. So think of it as so wide or so tall, or maybe all of those things. It wraps all the way around the box of the subwoofer, no matter how big the box is.
Yeah,
it wraps all the way
around. An ocean wave coming across a normal-sized rock in the ocean. This is like, technically there is a little disruption to that wave, but it's essentially unnoticeable. Versus a little ripple that you're making with your finger in your bathtub, and then you put that very same rock in there, and it's like, you can very clearly see the waves being disrupted, but they're much, much smaller.
And that's what happens with the tweeter. When you have that itty-bitty tweeter in a very large front baffle, the baffle makes a big difference, and you have to be very careful with how you place that tweeter and in what shape is going around, happening to the front baffle.
So that's why it's a wave guide. It's a very appropriate name to call it a wave guide. You are guiding the shape of the wave. Yeah.
So yes, this is something that's been, directivity and wave guides and multiple drivers to help shape the sound is something that's been going on for a long time. Yes, Perlisten is also doing it, right? As is almost every other tweeter that's out there. Very few tweeters are just flush mount to the front and go with God. There you go. They do something to it, or it'll sound weird. So, but they are also
flip side. Yeah, you'll see like a 2-way bookshelf speaker that does not have a waveguide on the tweeter, and there are some people out there on the forums who will be like, well, it can't have good uniform dispersion because it's not in a waveguide, and it doesn't have a mid-range driver above and below that tweeter. It must be poor, undesirable dispersion. That isn't true. If you choose the components or design the components well, and choose the crossover and design the crossover well, and choose and design the front baffle of your cabinet well, it's like, you gotta care, you gotta put some effort in. It's probably not going to happen by accident, but you can still have the goal of nice uniform dispersion as you transition from one driver to another in that speaker if you design things carefully. So there are multiple methods of achieving a similar goal, and Perlisten has chosen a completely reasonable way to do it.
That's right. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is aesthetics matter.
Sure.
And when they're designing a speaker, what would work best for the sound doesn't necessarily work best for selling that speaker at the price point that it needs to be sold. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for instance, that the best design for a tweeter would be in a cabinet that is absolutely the same size as a tweeter. Sure. Like it is right there, the edges of the cabinet. So it would be like this little stick sticking up at the top of your speaker, or maybe in the middle. Maybe it comes down like an hourglass.
We've seen something kind of similar to that. That has been tried. It has been done in real life. Yes.
And there's things to consider. Like, in order to do that, what does it cost to manufacture that speaker now? Now, in order to do that, you need to sell the speaker so that you can still make a profit while designing it so that it sounds quote unquote the best. So there are aesthetic concerns and, sales concerns and concerns that go on, that you're like, okay, well, what is best for the sound isn't necessarily going to equate into a speaker that I can sell for the price that I would need to in order to justify or to pay for the design and the manufacture of it. So it's, there's a lot to consider here, and waveguides are a really nice solution for it. Sometimes multiple drivers that are multiple tweeters, as you saw with some of these per listen speakers, can do it as well, but only if you can justify it to the consumer. And that's what per listen is trying to do. Yeah. Mark, last week we said Mark should go right ahead and fill in the gap behind his couch with insulation to work as a bass trap. That sounds like something I would say. We mentioned that Rockwool insulation is what we recommend using since it's easy to handle. You did a quick search, and there are a bunch of different varieties, different R values under the Comfort Bat name, but also Safe and Sound and Comfort Board. And then aside from the actual Rockwool brand, there are other brands of mineral wool insulation. So is it as simple as buying the Rockwool Safe and Sound version, since it, has sound in the name? Or should he be getting one of the other varieties? Who knew there'd be so many options? Also, since the gap is 18 inches from the wall to the back of the couch, any reason to get anything other than the standard 16-inch on-center insulation? You can literally just lay the bats in the gap, stack them up to the height of the back seat, and then cover them in fabric for looks, right? Yeah. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't buy the 24-inch on center that you quite often have to order in at the just the big box Home Depot type stores. The 16-inch on center seems like it'll work fantastic in the space that you have there. Very standard stuff. Basically, in the Rockwool brand of mineral fiber insulation, the Safe and Sound branding is just branding. There's nothing particularly special about it. It's not more soundproof or more sound absorbent or anything like that. What it actually denotes is the thickness, like the depth of that bat of insulation. And the Safe and Sound is exactly 3 inches deep, which is kind of a non-standard size. It's a slightly strange size to have, honestly. The regular Comfort Bat, which is typically a little bit less expensive, is the standard 3.5 inches deep that you would put into any 2x4. So because it's typically a little bit less expensive, and because you're actually getting a little additional thickness for less money, I'm like, just get the Comfort Bat stuff. That's normally my recommendation, unless, hey, they're running a sale on Safe and Sound and you work out the thickness and it's like, oh, that just works that much better. Or maybe you need exactly 3 inches of thickness for some reason or other. And that could be the way that you go. I wouldn't recommend the Comfort Board. That is the very rigid version of it that's meant to insulate basement foundations. It's almost strong enough to walk on, so that's not quite sound absorbent enough, so I wouldn't use that. Plus it costs more. Don't be fooled by the Safe and Sound branding. Just get the cheapest one, honestly, and the Comfort Bat, the regular 3.5 inches thick. So if there's another brand that's mineral wool insulation and it's the same stuff and it's $5 cheaper for a package of it, get that instead. It's going to be totally fine. But typically, the Rockwool branded Comfort Bat is like one of the cheapest options. So that's normally the way I go.
All right, Adam. Adam has been assisting his parents who are constructing a brand new house. There's going to be a dedicated home theater in the basement. The room is approximately 17 by 20 by 10 feet high. The interior walls were constructed using stagger studs, and the entire room has been double drywalled. The main entry door is on the right side wall at the very back, and then there's a sliding pocket door on the left wall at the very front, which grants access to a large storage room space on the other side of the theater's front wall.
He provided a diagram from when the house was being built. Yeah, so we got a rear right corner entry.
Be a problem. I can tell you that right now.
Possibly. Yep. Front left corner up there.
The room itself is nearly finished. The walls and ceiling are painted a very dark gray. It has wall-to-wall carpet, also gray, though a lighter shade than the walls. And a seating riser has already been built at the back. And ceiling can lights are already installed. And the room has been pre-wired for 7.2.4 configuration, but with 2 pairs of side surround speakers, 1 for each row, wired in series. Pre-wiring was done for both a potential ceiling-mounted projector near the back of the room and a wall-mounted TV on the front wall. So this is looking pretty good.
It's looking pretty nice there. I've got no beefs with everything that's been done so far. And yeah, the that pocket door at the front left is like, it blends right in. You can barely see it in the photo. But yeah, our major concern would be, is that thing going to rattle when the subwoofers are playing nice and loud? So hopefully, because I mean, there are pocket sliding doors that are well constructed. They're heavy. They've got dampers on them. That's the main thing, honestly, is having dampers on them, which are not a problem. So I'm hoping that's what you opted for, is a sliding door with dampers at the very least.
We will find out.
We will.
So the major decision that he and his parents are looking to make right now is which display they should buy. It's not exactly a money to no object situation, but they're willing to spend upwards of around $15,000 to get truly great performance at a size they will enjoy. The front row of seats will be the primary row, and its position it will position the viewer's eyes 11 feet from the front wall. That distance has led them to wanting a 120-inch screen size, but he's well aware that even just the thickness of a wall mount and the TV itself would make a 115-inch flat panel look just as large as a 120-inch projection screen mounted flat against the wall. So that is the current conundrum. Projection or flat panel? You absolutely 1,000,000% know what I'm going to say, but let's just...
It's not going to be a huge surprise coming from Tom. Not much of a surprise coming from me either, but, we've got other things to consider.
So they've never had a dedicated theater room before, and they've never used a projector before. They're coming from a living room setup in a 65-inch LG OLED. To Adam, the perfect inky blacks of an OLED are a top priority, but his parents do not notice or care about that as much as he does. They've gotten used to their OLED picture quality, though. They will mostly be streaming from their Apple TV 4K, and they have an NVIDIA Shield running Plex, and they do have an Ultra HD Blu-ray player for the occasional disc, no gaming whatsoever. So at the moment, he's considering either the TCL 115-inch QM 7K TV for them, or the JVC NZ700 projector with a 120-inch screen. The price is essentially the same for either of those, but he hasn't been able to find a really detailed review of the QM7K that is specific to the 115-inch size. He's assuming it might not perform identically to the smaller screen sizes in the QM7K series. So, can we help break the analysis paralysis for him? Should he actually point them towards a completely different display? He personally leans towards a flat panel TV, but he doesn't want to let his own preference dictate what might be the most enjoyable for his parents. So here's the conundrum I would think that you're actually in compared to the one that you think that you're in. So I think that you're in the conundrum that you want to get the best performance for them, and you want that to be what they, what actual performance would be the best compared to what is out there. And I think what the actual conundrum is, what is going to be most impressive to your parents?
Sure.
Because I think that they are spending what can only be considered a dump truck full of money on a room that they want to be able to say is they want to feel is an impressive experience for them.
Sure.
So, and they are not necessarily as worried about the absolute inkiest blacks and the absolute best colors and the absolute everything else. I lean towards. God, I'm going to make things worse, I think. If in my room, there's no world in which I do not go for a flat panel display. Okay. And yes, the inky blackness of that OLEDs are a priority for me, but not as much as a priority for not spending, $100,000 on a display.
Like, we can clearly say that in the room that's been constructed for your parents, like, projection is an option, right? There's nothing about this room where, like, oh no, projection totally wouldn't work in there. It's like, there's no windows, it's dark gray walls, you can turn off the can lights. It's like, yeah, projection can work in here. So it doesn't make the decision that dead easy. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I'm going to say, and I already regret saying it before I say it. And that is, I think you should talk to them about getting a dual setup.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So a flat panel mounted to the wall.
Okay.
But smaller than it should be for this space. For like normal watching, we just going to watch whatever sort of thing. And then a drop screen that goes over the front of it.
Motorized projection screen that comes down.
Yeah, and that paired with the projector that you're talking about. And even without the flat panel on the wall, I think the drop screen is the most important part of this. The motorized drop
just the impressiveness screen. You hit the button on the remote, the motorized screen comes down, the lights dim, because you could certainly integrate that into a universal remote macro. And if you want the sort of performance of the movie is about to begin, there's something to be said for that.
And if they're like, oh, we don't need two TVs in here,
right.
Great. Have that wall be full of art, like family pictures or whatever, and then boom, the screen drops down on top of it, and you're in a movie theater. I feel like that motorized drop screen is enough of a draw that. Or enough of a wow factor that they will feel like spending all this money on all these speakers that they probably didn't want as much as you did will suddenly make sense to them.
Yeah, I like my agreement here is that I would focus on what is the experience that they want to go for. That's really what this is all about. Because look, if you talk to your parents and they're like, honestly, I'd rather just keep the lights on. And some people might say that, right? Some people might absolutely say, like, look, honestly, I'd rather be able to keep the lights on. It's like, well, decision made. You're getting a flat panel. That's so much the better choice. If they're like, oh, no. Like, the whole point is we built this room completely separate from the rest of the house, and we soundproofed it, and I want the movie theater experience. That's what I want. I want to go in here, and I want it to be pitch black, and I want to be really impressed, and I want to have that theater feel. I'm like, you know what? Go projection and get, like Tom says, get the motor or get motorized curtains.
That's what I was just about to say. You can save a bunch of money and get motorized curtains because the motorized drop screens are really expensive.
Well, they don't have to be. There's some pretty reasonably priced motorized
curtains are way cheaper. I think.
Yeah, it's like, but that's the thing. Like, what is the experience they want to go for? Because most people are going to have a pretty clear preference. Some people are going to be like, oh, the main thing I wanted this for is a Super Bowl party, and I want to have the lights on. It's like, get a flat panel, man. You're going to be so much happier if that's the number one thing. But if you're like, no, the whole point of this dedicated room is that I want to feel like I went out to the movies, but I just had to go to my own basement instead. I'm like, I think you're going to be happier with some motorized curtains or a motorized drop screen or both, and a projection setup. Also, if they want to make shadow puppets, if they want to make bunny ears, then go for a projector instead, because that's going to be the experience they can have with the making the shadow puppets. But that's the thing to ask them. And I bet they do have a preference. I bet they have a vision in mind for how they want to feel, and I think that makes the decision for you right there.
Yeah, I agree. On the audio side of things, the acoustic treatments have not been put up yet, but rest assured the room will be fully treated. His plan for the audio system is as follows. They already own a front three speaker set of an old AV123... This is way back. AV123 Onyx Rocket speakers, the RS850 towers, and the Bigfoot RS C250 center. Those could potentially be replaced at some point, but the plan is, for now, to continue using them. Could those actually help sway the display decision? No.
Yeah, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The center's going to be going below the screen in either case, and they're not that drastically different in size, so that doesn't change that.
He's planned for using two SVS PC2000 Pro cylinder subwoofers, one in the front right corner, one in the rear left corner, since the doors take up the other two corners of the room. The plan is for the two side pairs of side surround speakers and the surround back speakers is to mount on-wall speakers, specifically the RBH Impression Series 5IW. 4 Sonus Mag 6R interlead speakers have already gone to the ceiling for overhead speaker duty, top fronts and top rears. The equipment rack is going in the mechanical room outside the theater. His intention was to power the whole audio setup from a Denon X3800H receiver plus a Fosse ZA3 stereo amp for the extra 2 channels that the Denon itself cannot power. What do we think? Can we give his audio plan a once over? Is there anything else he should be considering? The pre-wiring is all complete with the above plan in mind.
And I have to say, I don't know what has been purchased and what hasn't. Because if all of that is already purchased, I don't have any beef with any of it, other than to say, this is a scenario. This room is large enough. You're sitting far enough away. The speakers are power hungry enough that potentially adding like a 5-channel or even just a 3-channel external amplifier to the X3800H, which is totally easy to do because it has a full set of pre-outs, but we are talking about a little bit of extra money spent. Like, this is one where I'm going, depending on how loud your parents like to play things, because some people do not want to hit even 95 dB, and then you're perfectly fine powering this all off of the X3800H. But if they're like, no, we want a movie theater in our basement, we want it pretty darn loud, then this is one where it's like, you might benefit, genuinely so. But you don't have to go nuts. What I'm talking about here I would probably just get a 5-channel amp, because honestly, the price delta between that and a good 3-channel amp is not really worth it. I'd probably point you to like Outlaw, right? Right now, the prices have gone up, but $769, $770 for their Model 5000X would be a fantastic choice in here. If that's too much, then the Monoprice Monolith, the smaller one, the 100 watts per channel, the M5100X, $500. Right? So I think either of those is like not breaking the bank and a pretty reasonable add-on and could be genuinely helpful here. If you're not going to do any of that, actually using the Fosse ZA3 stereo amp to power the front, left, and right channels might be the best thing to do, because it is capable of powering those front, left, and right channels, and then that takes a significant load off of the AV receiver by using it for the front, left, and right rather than any of the other channels. So those are some recommendations I might have there. My only little qualm with all this, and again, if you've bought them, don't worry, they're okay. But the 5IR or IW model from the RBH Impression series, they can't play that loud. So again, if your parents don't want to play it that crazy loud, like, it's fine. But it's like, I might question that I would go to a speaker with a little bit more output capability of those, because this is not a tiny room. It's not a gigantic room, but it's not a tiny room. I can point you to a pair of speakers that actually cost less, about half the price, because the price is $378 for a pair rather than $350 each. So Ascend Acoustics HTM200 SE2 speakers. They are 6 inches deep, so they're 2 inches deeper, in just depth when they're mounted on the wall. But for that $378 per pair, they come with flush wall mounts that are going to be really easy to mount, and those HTM200 SE Mark II speakers from Ascend are capable of playing noticeably louder. It's like they're like 6 dB louder for the same amplifier power than the RBH 5IW, the smallest ones that RBH sells in that series. So I would just consider that, because the price is lower. The efficiency's better, the output capabilities are better, they're still flush mounted on the wall, and then with the money you save, maybe you afford that amplifier and it's even easier to drive this system.
We never talk about Ascend on this podcast.
I know.
We should talk about it more.
Yeah. But like I say, if you already bought all the stuff you mentioned, I don't have any beef with any of it. Yeah. I might just add an amplifier to it.
I like that idea, to be honest with you. This is 2 rows of seats. It's going to get...
Yeah.
You're going to need a little bit of volume in the front. No, hit the microphone again. Raf in Australia. Raf upgraded his pair of subwoofers a little while ago. He went to a pair of Tone Winner SWD with 8,000 subs, which used dual opposed 15-inch drivers, plus no less than 5 circular ports on the front. Tone Winner claims they can deliver a -3 dB point of 13 hertz with an extension down to 10 hertz. It hurts me to say that. But he went with the advice given by home theater guru on YouTube, which Home Theater Guru is all capitalized, so that must be their name.
Yeah.
And using the Tone Winner app, he raised the high pass filter setting from 10 hertz up to 19 hertz and gave it a very steep roll off of 48 dB per octave. Home Theater Guru said doing so frees up more headroom in the bass frequencies that are actually meaningful. Tone Winner's amps are DSP controlled, so to get that default 10 hertz extension, the frequencies above that are actually tamped down, but you can free them up by raising the high pass filter in the app and not worrying about bass much below 20 hertz. So he tried it both ways. It does seem like the higher frequency setting of 19 hertz, there's more punch to the bass, but it seemed as though the walls of his rooms, and his entire house for that matter, shake a bit more with it set to 10 hertz.
I mean, honestly, there might be mechanical vibration happening going on there. That is not out of the question. When people say that they can feel infrasonic bass, I'm like, well, you're not lying. It's not from the waves in the air.
Yeah, no.
Those are wrapping around you without you ever noticing them whatsoever. But you can make the physical structure that the subwoofer is sitting on vibrate at those infrasonic frequencies, and that you can detect. So okay. So do we think that's correct, and is the best way to handle this setting? I mean, this room isn't big enough to care either way. These subs are way oversized for this room. We've got some images of the room. This is not a gigantic room, and it does appear to be completely enclosed.
Yeah. So is this the best way to handle the setting? So the idea here is that if you change the frequency response, or the EQ, the DSP settings on the subwoofer, that it will stop trying to tamp down these higher frequencies in order to make a more even flat line. So let's put it this way. If you have a dip, right, and you can't get rid of your dip, you can lower the overall volume of all the other frequencies so the dip is less dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay, because you can't raise the dip by increasing the power. The dip stays there no matter what.
You bring everything else down to its level.
Yeah. Which is what they're saying. This Home Theater Guru is saying will happen. But
and he has the measurements to back it up. Yeah. He measured how it responds based on the different settings, and it's like, oh, there's like 9 dB of extra headroom if you take the processing off of this thing by changing that high pass filter. So there it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. Again, in this room, will it make any actual difference? Because you're nowhere near running out of... I mean, so having more headroom is like, okay, great, I have more headroom.
That's right.
So what he is saying he thinks he's experiencing, first of all, the punch makes no difference, is that there's less vibrations going through the rest of the house.
Sure.
That sounds like a positive to me.
Yeah. But some people don't like that. They're like, hey, I used to feel something, and now I don't anymore.
Yeah. So when people talk about infrasonic bass, there's two things I think that they are experiencing where they, two non-psychological things that I think that they're experiencing. One is something physically shaking them from the lower frequencies, shaking something else, and then it's shaking them. Or shaking the thing they're sitting on, they're shaking the thing they're standing on. They're like, okay, I can feel this thing, and now when you take away those lower frequencies, I can no longer feel it. The other thing I think that they sometimes experience, and this is probably the most common one, is some sort of noise that is created by the low frequencies, shaking something that makes a noise that makes them think they're hearing the low frequencies.
A distortion you're not hearing of some sort. Yes,
it is a distortion. That's exactly what it is. That is by definition what it is. So he is saying, hey, there used to be shaking in my house, and now this shaking is gone because I took away these frequencies. Clearly, this is a bad thing. No, actually, I think this is actually a good thing.
And I mean, to be clear, he didn't say it clearly one way or the other. And he even said, like, I think maybe my walls were shaking a little more before, but he didn't say it. And like, they absolutely did, and I missed that it's gone. Raph did not say that, so we're putting a whole bunch of words in his mouth.
I am. Yes. Understand that I'm doing this as an educational thing and not as saying that this is what Raph believes. So, is it the best way to do it? Sure, I guess on a objective level, yes, you now have more headroom that you will also never
Absolutely
use.
never possibly use in this scenario.
And also, it gets rid of a bunch of vibrations in the rest of your house. I think this is definitely the best way to do it. Do I think that audibly it's going to make any difference? No, you're getting the exact same bass.
You are perfectly safe using these subwoofers with whatever high-pass filter. You can go ahead and manually lower it below 10 hertz if you want to. It's going to be fine in your room. So this is a matter of, hey, if you did like the mechanical shaking that you used to have, go ahead and do it, man. I got no beef with that. I got no problem with you doing whatever you want to do in here. There is no like truly better way for you to set these up one way or the other, because you are not reaching the headroom output limits in either scenario.
Yes. Okay, for whatever reason, getting affordable acoustic treatments and even just regular bats of insulation is unreasonably difficult in Australia. That's because you guys live far away from everything. I know, because I used to live there, and it sucked. Man, dude. I remember Queensland was going through like some sort of banana blight, and we didn't have bananas for a long time because there was no way to get bananas to us. My wife was like, what is the deal? Why are bananas so expensive? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just Australia. So he fully carpeted this room and even put down an extra rug on top of the on top in front of the seats. And he bought the most reasonable acoustic panels he could find and covered his front wall, side walls, and rear corners with them. But they're only 2 inches thick on the side walls, only 1 inch thick on the front and back walls. Felt like absorption material. Felt.
Yeah, felt.
Like felt.
The material
like he felt it.
Yeah.
He felt it, and it felt like it was absorption. The absorption material was felt. And they all have thin wood slats or scatter plates on the fronts. This room kind of I'm gonna be honest with you, it looks like you're inside of an EKG. It's a little weird. It's like this room would stress me out a little bit. I'm sure it's just the way the picture is taken, but it feels a little stressful. I'm gonna be honest with you. So there's really no bass trapping at all, and he's trying to figure out what he can do about that. Maybe you can lower your frequency response on your subs a bit more. Anyways, or raise it. I don't know. Anyways, he found some panels that are at least made of fiberglass from a company called Vivor.
Something like that.
Vivor. They're only 1 foot wide by 2 feet tall, and they're only 2 inches thick. But he was thinking that he could put like 8 of them together to make some 4-inch or 6-inch thick panels that he could fit in the front corners of his room. What do we say? Could this be a reasonable way to get some good bass traps in his room? Good. You don't know if there's. Oh, I didn't click on this link, obviously, but it does. There's no. Is there backings on these? A lot of times there's backings.
Yeah, it's adhesive. It's adhesive backing, which means you can peel off the sticker thing and do the thing I've talked about before, which is put the two sticky sides back to back and stick them together. That's not a gigantic problem. My issue is I don't know how much of any audible difference that's going to make in here. Like we always said, you can never have too much bass trapping in your room, and you really don't have any. I'm a little concerned that right now your decay times are going to be quite uneven because you've really just treated the mid-range and up. That's really all that's sort of been treated in this room. So yeah, that might be kind of an uneven decay time situation in the room as it is. So if you put a lot of bass trapping in here, so not just the front vertical corners, but like the space that's below the sidewall panels along the floor to wall edges, maybe up along the ceiling to wall edges as well, something like that. If you put a soffit style bass trapping a lot in here, that could measurably and potentially audibly help to even things out. If it's only gonna be a couple of 1 foot wide panels, 4 inches thick in the front corners, like I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I don't think it's worth the price that you would pay to do that much. And then to do what I was talking about and like line every edge of this room with panels is going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, they're very expensive.
They're very expensive. There's got to be a way to just get regular bats of information and make yourself some super chunks or something, triangle chunks or something like that.
That's
right?
what I would be thinking about doing. Is just getting regular bats of insulation and building even just a triangle or a square frame so that you can stack them up and then put like a layer of something to support the next layer.
Yeah, because 4-inch thick is not going to treat your crossover region. You kind of need 8 inches thick, and that can be like air gap plus, right? So that's why super chunks work so well, because into the corner
door?
They
do
do
you
that.
Drop in from the ceiling on this room? Where is the door in this room?
It's in the rear left corner in the vertical image. You can see it behind that what would be the left seat, right? We're facing the back, so it's the seat that's on the right. But there's a white door with a door handle. It blends into the wall.
It's a very narrow room.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it now. There it is.
Yes,
I see it. I thought it was on the other side. This whole thing stresses me out.
Yeah, I don't think I would.
Out what's on those? It's on the floor. What is that on the? Is that a wire track that's going down the sides on both sides? I guess is that what that is? A wire track.
Wire track on both sides.
Or is that molding? Is that molding on the floor right next to the carpet?
Yeah. I mean, there's baseboard that's going along.
Baseboard. Yeah.
And then there's crown molding up top. So, and it looks like he's covered over a window on the right hand side. Up in here.
I don't know, man.
Anyway, we should move on because I don't think the ones that you link to are worth the price for what you proposed. That's my ultimate takeaway on that. Yeah, if you can get yourself some just regular bat insulation, make yourself some like 6 to 8 inch thick type of things. You're looking for around 8 inches of thickness to really make a worthwhile audible difference in here, and that's the way I would tackle it.
All right, Henry. Henry has some concerns about inflation and just how darn expensive home theater equipment is getting. Well, it's not going to get better anytime soon.
That's his fear.
His strategy over the past several years has been to wait until a new series of given product is announced, and then when the current series goes on clearance, that's when he'll pounce. He did that with his JVC NX5 projector several years ago, and then when the NZ500 got announced, the NP5 went on sale, he replaced his NX5 with an MP5. Mm-hmm. He was thinking that, plus a lamp replacement, will last him until the NZ500 goes on clearance in a couple of years. But he has watched with dismay as the current price of the NZ500 has actually gone up. It now has an MSRP that is $2,000 more than either the NX5 or the MP5 when they were new. So even if it follows the same sort of sale price when its replacement gets announced, he might find himself priced out of that upgrade. Have you looked at the prices of Xboxes lately?
Indeed. Yeah.
Is this the new normal in home theater prices? No, this is a new normal. Full stop. End of sentence. Being.
Yes.
Yeah. The Trinnov, Storm Audio, Lumagen, and MadVR stuff just seems unattainable, so he kind of just ignores it. But even much more mainstream products are all spiking up in prices, and once they go up, they never seem to come back down. You are correct, sir. I already said that. Are we just doomed to see our purchasing power for home theater equipment continue to erode? Not just home theater equipment. It's going to be all of it. I don't know what to tell you. Believe me, we are all in the same boat. And what about someone who is just getting into the home theater today? If he were in that position, he's not sure he'd ever get into this hobby, and that seems like a darn shame. So what are our thoughts? So is he trying to get us canceled? Because I feel like that's what's going on here. And Jimmy Kimmel barely made it out, and we have very little chance of doing that.
He's got a little bit more known amongst powerful people than we do. Yeah, to leap to his defense.
I don't know that we have the gravitas or the political pull to get people to cancel their Disney subscriptions or whatever.
Also, not sure how that would help us, but yes, I see what you mean.
Clearly.
I've been bemoaning this well before all of this
right.
tariff stuff ever came into effect.
Yes.
I'm seeing the higher end prices are getting higher, the middle is completely disappearing, and all we're left with at the lower end is soundbars, right? And I'm not happy about that. Now, what I want to say is it's changing, right? Because you're talking specifically about projectors, and the projector market, whether there was any economic disruption to the world and global trade and all of this stuff, whether the pandemic had ever happened or not, like which were, put a tremendous financial strain on things and supply chains and that, whether any of that had happened or not, projectors were going to become a smaller and smaller portion of the home market regardless. And we have seen the rise of bigger and bigger flat panel TVs at lower and lower prices. So while we've seen this increase in MSRP for projectors, if you're looking at flat, like 115-inch flat panels did not exist just a couple of years ago. Like ridiculously affordable 98-inch flat panels is not something that was an option. It absolutely is now. Maybe it's not the flagship 98, but you can get a 98-inch TV for under $2,000 now. That's insane. That's crazy that you can do that. So it's not that everything across the board actually has gotten more expensive. It's that there are new and different things that you might need to consider to take the place of something that you had before. If I were brand new getting into this, it's one of the things I've tried to recommend on this podcast several times, which is you can still get a pretty darn nice 9-channel receiver, especially from like Accessories for Less, shop B stock, maybe shop used, but then don't buy 7 or 9 speakers, just buy 5 speakers and rely on the virtualization processing, which does a pretty darn good job. I've argued, I think it sounds a little bit better than physical speakers that fire upward at your ceiling. Not quite as good as real speakers mounted on or in your ceiling, but I think the virtualization works pretty darn well. So again, it's like, I think the way to do this is to shift the thinking a little bit, go a little bit like, it's not exactly what I used to do, but here's a new solution that is affordable to me. So that's where I think we bring value as a podcast, is to talk about those alternatives as we notice them and they come up.
I have been saying that projectors are dead, and they are, as far as I'm concerned, for all intents and purposes, for most consumers. So there was a heyday of projectors where we had flat panels that kind of stopped at 55 inches, 56 inches, maybe up to 60 inches. And then there was nothing bigger than that.
Yeah.
And we started getting into these projectors that were, people started buying like business class projectors that were like portable, and they weren't really appropriate for what they were doing. But they're like, I want a bigger image. I want a bigger image. How can I get it? How can I get it? And places like Epson and other
Sharp
brands.
back in the day. Sharp was big on those home projectors back in the day.
They started coming out with these lower priced home theater specific projectors.
720p was a big thing, man, when you had those 720p projectors.
And, suddenly they were a viable opportunity, alternative to a flat panel. And
well, it wasn't even a flat panel, it was like a rear projection, a big old honking rear projection TV back then when that came up.
And there was like a pretty, big jump from, a really good flat panel to a kind of okay home theater projector to a really good home theater projector. There were like these skips around, sort of situation. It was cheaper to buy that mid-level or that entry-level home theater projector per square inch than what you could get for a flat panel. And that's just disappeared. And you can see this in JVC and specifically, but we're going to see this more and more as they're going to abandon projectors who are only capable of doing okay images at 120. The what's going to step in its place is the short throw projectors, which people kind of understand. But those are going to be still a niche product, I think. And
people are buying these 98-inch TVs, and
they are.
Yeah, people are
I see
buying
it happen all the time. Every time I go to Sam's, somebody's trying to wheel one of those things out
Yeah.
and strap it at the top of their Geo Metro. So, as far as speakers and receivers and these other things, yes, I agree with you. We have been worried that that sort of mid-level receiver that we would mostly recommend seems to be getting more and more expensive and very much more rare, because we have fewer brands out there that are competing with each other, because they're all being bought up and then combined, and then some of the brand names are being discarded. So there's not as much competition. But there's always going to be the used market, because the people who, like you, are going to upgrade are going to find a way to upgrade. And then they're going to want to get rid of their old stuff because they've got no use for it anymore. And when they do, that's when your new person comes in and says, hey, I've got Odyssey Multi-Q. XT. And it's on a 5-year-old receiver, but it's way better than the entry level that they have right now that doesn't have anything, or only has AccuEQ or something like that. So it's something. They'll figure it out. These people will figure it out. How much time we got left, Rob?
I mean, we are at 2 hours. I'd love to get to at least 1 or possibly 2 more, but
well, I would love to go to the bathroom. So let's do 1 and see where we are after that.
Yes.
Jason has made the decision to upgrade his pair of Velodyne DSP-12 subwoofers. As we might recall, he's hoping to achieve flatter extension down to 20 hertz, but he also hopes that if he gets new subs that have fully variable phase adjustment, he might be able to improve the actual audible dip in his bass frequency response around 75 hertz without having to physically change where the subs go in his room, which one is in a cabinet sort of at the front.
One is dead center in the front of the wall, but yes, within a built-in cabinet structure. And then, it does appear like the other one is in the rear right corner. Of the room. Yeah.
That's right. And we have a frequency response graph here where you can see around 75 hertz. He's got a big, almost 10 dB drop. Well, let's call it 10. He liked our description of what a pair of SVS PB2000 Pro subs should be able to deliver in his setup, but looking at their cabinet dimensions, they're not going to fit. The cubby space at the front of his, in the middle of his front wall, directly below his TV and center speaker, is only 18 3/4 inches high, and it's 22.5 inches wide and 21.5 inches deep. I think you just lie a cylinder sub on its side and just push it in.
Have it sticking way out. That's quite the choice. Big old tube to climb over in the middle of the room.
You're like, what is that? Just say it's the exhaust.
Yeah.
The PB2000 Pro could just squeak in width and height-wise if he lays it on the sides, but it would still protrude significantly out of the front due to its depth. And I mean, I think the one you have now is protruding out.
It's protruding a little, but it would protrude more, noticeably so.
And then he also just isn't crazy about how a front-ported sub on its side would look at the front of his room. He'd rather stand any sub upright as intended. Turn the lights off, you won't notice. So as a sealed sub his only option, his budget could potentially go as high as $3,000 Canadian per sub, but it would obviously be nicer not to spend quite that much. The PB2000 Pro is currently priced at $1,850 Canadian. The sealed SB3000 exactly the same price Canadian. So is that the play here, a pair of SB3000s, or is there a different option we would suggest that could yield similar results that are to the PB2000 Pro and superior to the SB3000? I mean, I don't know, because I'd have to look at the dimensions and start doing some research myself, and I didn't do that because that's not what I do around here.
So I mean, I'm going to recommend that Tone Winner, which I did mention, and Summit Hi-Fi, thankfully Canadian retailer, that is a supplier of Tone Winner. So if you want the sub from Tone Winner that's going to have very similar performance to a PB2000 Pro, it would be Tone Winner's SWD4000. So that's priced at $1,650, so $200 less. That's Canadian dollars, but $200 less. And so it's ever so slightly smaller in its dimensions. It's 17.5 inches wide, 21 inches high, and 22 inches deep. So it's going to stick out 1 inch out the front of that cabinet that you've got. And yes, you would need to lay it on its side. But its grill covers the front ports. You don't see the front ports. Maybe the logo being on the side bugs you, but maybe you get in there with some isopropyl alcohol and you remove that logo, and that completely takes care of the visual distraction of the sub being on its, horizontal side rather than being vertical. That is the choice that would give you the same sort of output capabilities and extension that you're going for. If that's just a total, please don't make that a total no-go. That really should be the one that silly. I think you should get, because you can get a different model of subwoofer from Tone Winner, their SWD2000. It's much more of a cube, so it's 17 inches wide, 17.25 inches high, and 18.5 inches deep. So physically, it's going to fit in that cubby. And this is still ported, not sealed, but it's a rear slot port, which I'm not crazy about putting into that cubby and backing right up to the wall. Because, rear ported inside a cubby and right against the wall.
Frequency response problems before. Do that.
Exactly. Not crazy about that. It is a downgraded driver. It's still a 12-inch diameter driver, but it's not the same driver that's in the D4000. 4000. It's half the amplifier power. And honestly, even though they claim it's got extension down to 16 hertz, it's a 25 hertz sub, which the cabinet and the necessary how long can that port possibly be inside of that cabinet will tell you it's 25 hertz porting. There's no way around the physics of that. So since the whole goal here was to improve that extension, the linearity of extension right down to 20 hertz, it's like, you gotta get the bigger cabinet and you gotta go port it. If you went with an SB3000, very nice sub, but it is a sealed sub, and the response on that at the low end is actually like slightly not as much 20 hertz output as a PB1000 Pro. It's actually really similar, the SB3000, in terms of 20 hertz extension to the RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark II. Which, you know what? Maybe you import one of those, because if that's what you're going to do, you're spending way less money, even after importing it, to get an RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark II than an SB3000. So if that's the size and the 20 hertz extension you're going to go for, yeah, get an RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark II instead. If you go to an SB4000, that has very similar 20 hertz extension and output as a PB1000 Pro. So you need to go all the way up to the SB5000 to get PB2000 Pro like extension and 20 hertz output. It's amazing how much higher you have to go in the lineup to get similar output and extension from a sealed sub versus a ported sub. The SB4000 is available for $3,000 Canadian. So since we said, hey, PB1000 Pros in this room would not be terrible, they'd kind of be at their limits, but they wouldn't be the worst choice. It's like, yeah, SB4000s could do the job, but for 6,000 Canadian dollars to get a pair of them. Whereas you can get almost the same thing from a pair of RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark IIs, or you can get the full PB2000 Pro-like performance from the Tone Winner, the D4000 models. So that's my true recommendation to you. Yes, put it on its side.
All right, John in Ireland. John still likes to play movies on discs. He's been using the LG UBK90 Ultra HD Blu-ray player for several years now. It's fine. Kind of feels a little cheap, and you can hear a whirring noise when it plays, but it functions fine. And it automatically switches Dolby Vision on and off, which is a priority for him, so it's better than any of those players from Sony. But he's rather worried that disc players entirely might not be available to buy that much longer. He was considering buying himself a spare player to have as a backup, but then he got to thinking maybe his current LG player can be his backup, and he can get himself a nicer Ultra HD Blu-ray player. That would be my thought too.
You could, yeah.
It seems as though his options are all from Panasonic. There's a UB450 at 260 euros, UB820 at 456 euros, and the UB824 EJK model at 396. It's a weird number.
Yeah, very specific.
Which one should he get? He's heard Rob say that 450 is the best value and that the 820 might be nice to have for some reason. Better upscaler, maybe, was it? I don't know. He'll be using it with his 85-inch TCL TV. Does he need the more expensive 820 to get the best quality with that? And then why is that 824? What is that 824 GK, which I cannot say for some reason.
It is
why does it have a higher model number but a lower price? What is going on, Rob? What is going on with this?
So first, let's explain. Yeah, so the UB824, and then there's a bunch of different letters that it might have after that. That is a Europe-only model, and it is a Europe-only power supply. The UB820 can have a power supply for, global standards. So I don't know if that explains the price difference there, but it's region specific is the UB824. So performance wise shouldn't be any difference as long as your power standard where you are in Ireland. I don't know if there's differences because sometimes, just from region to region, there can be differences in some places. So it would be more about making sure that the power supply is appropriate for where you're living, that's not going to be an issue. But yeah, if you do that, then functionally it works just like a UB820. So yeah, it's a European specific model number is all that's going on with that. So yeah, your 85-inch TCL TV, virtually no chance that you need the feature that separates the 820 from the 450, which is Panasonic's HDR optimizer. That's the feature that it has that the 450 does not have, and it's most useful for projectors and then for lower brightness TVs that simply cannot get anywhere close to 1,000 nits. And I don't think TCL even makes one of those. I think everything they make goes to 1,000 nits or more. So yeah, the HDR optimizer was a thing that it is not, people get confused, it is not frame by frame dynamic tone mapping. It is not the really excellent frame by frame tone mapping that we might like to be able to add with a player. No, it is just pre-tone mapping. It tone maps the disc that it's playing down to a set level below 1,000 nits that you manually choose with it. 500 nits, 700 nits, you choose a level below 1,000 nits, and then it pre-tone maps it to that, which again can be helpful for some projectors and some low nit displays, but it's not something you need. So honestly, I think if you're going to do this, just go ahead and get a UB450. It is definitely the least expensive. It has all the features you want. It plays Dolby Vision nicely and automatically detects it and turns it on and off as it should. There's not really much reason that you need to go for the more expensive players in this case. I think you'll be really happy with a UB450.
All right, who do we have left?
We have on our list Alex and Mosin, and that's it on the list for First Up Next Week.
I think this is... I thank our listeners of the week. I want to thank Dan and Raph for going to avrant.com, clicking the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 128 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, for sure. Dan and Raph, thank you so much for those PayPal donations. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thank you to our 128 patrons over there.
I thank Joe for giving me permission to use his photos on AV Gadgets.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and glad for that Cedia episode. It's done well.
Yeah. And we thank those who send in notes of gratitude, including Aris, Jason, Mark, Ilango, Joe, Adam, Raph, Henry, John, and Mosin. Thank you for thanking us.
For sure. I'll say the names one more time. We got Aris, Jason, Mark, Ilango, Joe, Adam, Raph, Henry, John, and Mosin. Thank you all so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.